So I welcome you all to it is one of the most important panel discussions of the two-day event that is on sustainability. And the topic is sustainability sourcing realities, challenges, achievements, and next steps. So before going to the questions, I once again will brief the distinguished panelists that you'll get around 3 minutes to answer your questions. And I would like to go straight. And the first question. So I would like to ask Andrei. So he is the responsible sourcing social impact manager for the Bestseller. And I know that Bestseller also recently declared their Fair for All goals under the Fashion Forward strategy. So my question to you, or I'd like to know more about the Fashion Forward strategy of the Bestseller and how the manufacturers can involve in realizing these goals.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Welcome to sunny Amsterdam. And thank you so much for the question. Our Fashion Forward strategy has a very big pillar, which is dedicated to workers, and we call it Fair for All. This is where we talk about fair income, about protecting the rights of the workers, about empowering them, and safe work conditions. And partnering with industry in delivering the results under the strategy is very important because we're trying to create solutions for workers, and the workers are employed in the factories. And we need to speak to the management of the factories and to the workers and their representatives when we're designing these programs for them. I would like to give a couple of examples how we do it. I'm sure many of people in the room are aware of Accord, now called RSC, which is an organization that works on occupational health and safety and building safety in Bangladesh. And that's a great example where employers, unions, and brands can come together and develop some good solutions. Nothing is perfect. There is always room for improvement, but that's one of the good examples. We also work a lot on women empowerment with the workers and the industry in the country. And as of today, we've empowered more than 120,000 women in Bangladesh in our supply chain through partnership with organizations like RISE. And the key point here is always listen to what are the struggles actually in the country rather than coming with a solution that is not relevant for that country. And for us, it's very important to have that local representation and local voices in helping us designing those programs for workers under our Fashion Forward strategy. We do have a lot of work on freedom of association. It's a very important point in Bangladesh as well, like in many other countries where we work with Industrial and the affiliated unions to make sure that freedom of association is promoted, protected, as long as there is equal and inclusive representation of the workers. And we are members of different organizations, for example, like ETI, who does a lot of gender work in the country as well. So to sum up this, the first question is the main role that we see in suppliers is helping us design the solutions that they need at the workplace, and we need to consult the workers in that process because the worker is the ultimate goal for us that we want to empower and create value in our supply chain.
Thank you, Andrei. Inspiring indeed. Before I ask question to the brands, I would like to ask question to the only manufacturer representative in the panel discussions, Mr. Syed M. Tanvir. He is the managing director of Pacific Jeans, one of the pioneer denim factory in Bangladesh in producing premium jeans. And my question to you, sir, that what are some of the sustainable practices your factory are currently doing, if you can share? And the second part of the question is where and how the partnerships of brands with the manufacturer can accelerate this sustainability momentum. So if you can shed some light.
Thank you. Is it working? All right. Thank you very much. Really appreciate today's panel discussion and also the total arrangement that has been done and inviting me for speaking here. Thank you very much. Well, sustainability as we speak, is evolving every moment. I think at the moment we have so many parameters of sustainability, and different brands have different perspective to look at sustainability. And I think it's absolutely fine, because every brand has their own philosophy of looking at sustainability, and it's very difficult to look at it and solve it or maintain it from a whole perspective. So for us, I think sustainability is more towards achieving our carbon emission goal that we have signed. We have also one of the signee where we have we are committed to reduce our carbon emission by 30% by 2030. So we have a clear roadmap of how we are going to do it. And other than that, we are also working on different categories of sustainability, like worker welfare, CSR. In terms of human sustainability, we are partnering with eye care NGOs. It's an Australian NGO, Fred Hollows Foundation, where we give free eye care facility to all our workers. And also, it's not just the checkup, it's also their full medical facilities is being given by the company. And also, we are partnering with one of the most renowned universities in Bangladesh. It's the Asian Women University, where we are giving free scholarship to our workers, those who are very meritorious. They come from a very humble background. To support their family, they started working, but if they get the right education, if they get the right training, they can move up to a leadership position. So we are basically taking care of their education. We are giving them scholarship. So in this way, we are actually doing a lot of welfare project for our workforce. And in terms of environmental sustainability, we are very much committed to reduce the carbon emission. To achieve that, we've already started water recycling in all our factories. Our goal is to reach 50% of water recycling by 2025. We are already at 40%, so within 2 years' time we will reach 50% across all our production units. Well, some of our production units have already reached 80%. And in terms of energy sustainability, we are heavily investing in clean energy. We are one of the largest rooftop solar facility in Bangladesh, where we are producing almost 8.5 megawatt of electricity, which is clean energy. That is of our total consumption, it's almost 15%. And also in terms of technology adoption, we are adopting all the latest technologies to make sure that we are reducing less water, we are using less energy to produce a piece of jeans. And we are partnering with all our customers for their sustainable denim campaign. And we will be doing it more seriously in coming years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Syed and Tanvir. Really encouraging to know such exemplary sustainable practice of Bangladesh factories. But we often ignore one critical part of the discussion, that is consumers. But consumers' purchasing behaviors is really important for promoting the sustainability. So I would like to ask my next question to Joris, CEO WeFashion. So my question to you is, how consumers can be educated about sustainability, and how WeFashion is engaging with consumers to influence them in making conscious purchasing behaviors?
Is it working? Yes, okay. Thanks for the question. At WeFashion, we're quite proud of the progress that we're making in terms of sustainability. Today, 80% of our range is labeled as more sustainable. And today, 2/3 of customers buy only these products. So that's quite a substantial share. But to be honest, we don't speak a lot about it. And that's the reason why we believe it's just something we have to do. It comes from our vision, it comes from our heart, and it's not something that I think we distinguish ourselves with. It's something that I think we all together have to do. Our core philosophy is better together. This is typically a field that belongs to that spirit. We have to make sure that consumers can rely to buy safe products and to buy products that are better. But here comes a very important point. What is the definition of more sustainable? And how can we align this across the industry? Because you mentioned just now how difficult it is to determine what different customers mean with more sustainable. And this is exactly one of the problems. And we have legislative bodies here that set regulations and rules from global, European, and country level, which makes it very difficult for brands like us to operate and to educate our consumers consistently. Because let's be honest, the consumers really don't care that much. They don't wake up in the morning thinking, I'm going to buy a sustainable pair of jeans. They don't, but they like to read and understand in a logical, consistent way about the progress that we make as an industry. So my call to this environment is, let's work better together. Let's make sure that we align legislative measures across countries, set the bar at the same level, that whenever Bestseller talks about more sustainable, it's the same as we do. When G-Star mentions more sustainable, it's the same as we do. Rather than we all find our little different angles that makes it for the consumer ultimately impossible to navigate. So I think if we want to take the consumer along, consistency in messaging is key. Measuring what we do. Water reduction has to be certified, measurable, so that we can communicate about it. So I think there lies a lot of responsibility for all of us to take steps according to an aligned grid of actions that is clear and can be communicated to consumers so that they can make safe choices along the way.
Thank you so much for sharing the valuable insights and also rightly mentioning the issue of legislation. And that prompts me to ask a question to Her Excellency Rensje Teerink. You have been very much involved in the transformation of the Bangladesh apparel industry when he was ambassador of European Union in Bangladesh. So we would like to ask the questions to you. How the developing economies like Bangladesh, which has large textile industries, can be supported to make the sustainability transition in a just and equitable manner, and how European Union is supporting the promotion of sustainability across the apparel supply chain. So if you kindly share your answer.
Thank you. Yes, thanks very much. Also to Mustafiz for inviting the European Union here. Delighted to be here. And also to point out that this is it augurs well for the EU-Bangladesh partnership. This year we are celebrating 50 years of EU-Bangladesh diplomatic relations. So again, I think there is a lot we have done already together. And maybe to just tag on what you said about consumer responsibility. Yes, people don't wake up perhaps in the morning saying, let me buy sustainable clothing. Although I think with the younger generation, I think this becomes more and more an issue. But I think what is important here is that we cannot only count on the goodwill of the brands, the goodwill of the producers. I think at the level of the EU, what we need is legislation. And that is, of course, what we're working on in Brussels and with the member states. And the all overarching plan here is, of course, as you all know, the European Green Deal. And everything that we do under sustainability, sourcing, etc., always has a bearing on this legislation, this grant package, also known as Fit for 55, what the EU aims. And of course, with the EU Fit for 55, it means that the EU is striving to become a carbon neutral continent. So this is a big endeavor. Now, but what we're talking here is textiles, and we want to know specifically, is there any EU legislation that has a bearing on the textile industry? In March last year, the EU adopted its strategy for sustainable and circular textiles to create a framework to make the textile sector sustainable and circular. And what does this mean in practice? This means that by 2030, all textile products placed on the EU market have to be long-lived and recyclable, and to a great extent made of recycled fibers. They need to be free of hazardous substances and produced respecting social rights and the environment. And I think here there is also an interesting catchphrase which we could announce here. Fast fashion will be out of fashion. So consumers would benefit longer from high quality textiles. I think this is maybe one lesson we all need to learn, that the fast textiles is not sustainable in the long run. And of course, as you also pointed out, that producers have to take responsibility for their products along the value chain. So this is this one specific strategy that was adopted. Now we're doing also a lot of other things. I can't go into it too much detail, but I wanted to briefly inform you about the corporate sustainability due diligence legislation. This is a legislation that will foster sustainable and responsible corporate behavior in global value chain. And I think this is especially important for the garment producers in Bangladesh, because what we don't want is to see a race to the bottom in pricing strategies. And we've seen that, for example, during COVID. While I was posted in Bangladesh, I saw from close by the enormous problems that some of the factories had in continuing providing the products, but also a lot of cancelled merchandise, which I think had an enormous impact. So I think due diligence legislation is very much another important strategy. So, of course, we have also on the ground worked with the government of Bangladesh. And I'm very honored to see here His Excellency, the Commerce Minister, who is our counterpart, and also the plan of action where the EU works together with the Bangladeshi Ministry of Labor and Employment, and also with ILO to address labor issues. I don't want to say too much about the labor issues here, because this will also be discussed more in detail in the next panel with my colleague who will be there from the DG Employment from the European Commission. But just to let you know that this is another part of our overall strategy to address this. Thank you.
Hello. Yes, thank you, Excellency, and really very stringent regulations that are in the offing. So I think the industry leaders are also present here and taking note of that strategy, EU strategy that is you are taking. So, and also, as you mentioned about the carbon neutrality, so I would like to ask this question to Willeke Hendricks now. She is the Director of Global Sourcing and Product Development of Gias Raw. So we know that Gias Raw has announced to reduce 30% of the GHG emissions by 2030. So what are the strategies that Gias Raw are taking to achieve this target, if you can share?
Yes, of course. Thank you for this question, and also thank you for being here. Yes, we set a goal to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 30% in 2030. Of course, it all starts with, before you can make the strategy, to make sure that you are aware what is the data now, where are we standing now today. So we started in 2019 already to gather data, and we also used an external company to help us out to know, okay, what is our baseline. So in 2021 we set the baseline, and every year now we improve the data, so we are more aware of what is our carbon footprint. And by knowing, we also immediately saw that as an industry we have a big step to make, because our indirect footprint is the biggest one. So therefore, with the data, we help out our suppliers also to understand, okay, what is the impact, what are we doing? And also with a carbon leadership program we set up, we select certain vendors in our supplier base to start up with measuring, with training, and with that we can make sure that we improve. And of course, next to know that in our making of the products the biggest impact is there, we are looking at the sustainable materials. So also our 2030 goal is to be 100% sustainable material use. So we will have recycled and organic, bio-based, all options to make sure that we can reach also in 2030 that. And that impact will of course have a positive impact for our carbon footprint. Next to that, of course, the sourcing strategy should align. So we want to make sure that we produce more locally. So not shipping around, because of course some materials are moving all over the world. So we will make sure that we produce more and more local to avoid the transportation, because of course transportation is a big part of it. And reduce our air freight, that is also a big impact, and yeah, therefore we need to plan more, we need to plan better, and we need to make sure that our long-term partners are with us, and therefore we are very happy also to work with the top of the suppliers of the world, and to make sure that we can make it happen.
Thank you. So we know the Sustainable Apparel Coalition is playing one of the role of the catalyst in promoting sustainability across the supply chain, fashion supply chain. So I would like to ask the question to now Lisa Domene, Senior Director of Membership and Corporate Engagement, Sustainable Apparel Coalition, SAC. So my question to you is how the SAC is facilitating collaborative initiatives, particularly for the South Asian retailers and manufacturers members, and where does you see the opportunities, and looking toward the future, where the opportunity you see?
Thank you. For those of you who are not aware, the Sustainable Apparel Coalition is an impact and impact-creating independent organization aiming to lead the industry towards a shared vision of sustainability based on a joint approach of measuring, evaluating, and improving performance. Our vision is a global consumer goods industry that gives more than it takes to the planet and its people. The SAC represents over 50% of the textile and apparel industry globally. And we are present within more than 36 countries and 280 brands, membership brands, retailers, manufacturers, affiliates, and NGOs and academia. And we have over 120,000 facilities using our Higg Index suite of tools. So the industry needs comparable facts and data, and you mentioned this earlier on, standardization, how important that is, that enable brands and manufacturers to measure, improve, and share their social and environmental performance in a common sustainability language. empowering organizations to understand the impact they're having is critical to scaling and improving. And we've got a lot of members who are using the HIG Index suite of tools. For instance, we've got an American retailer, Ascena, who have helped suppliers implement 250 energy-saving projects amounting to about $3.5 million energy saving, in energy saving. And we have another European brand, Aldo, who uses our tools to provide granular life cycle assessment data. They use our product tools to decarbonize their company supply chain. And then we have brands, and not to mention as well the brands sitting up here today as well, who use our BRM, our brand retailer module, and our facility social and labor modules to work on programs that advance gender equality and respect human rights. So all tools that drive towards convergence. At its core, SAC are a convener. And we work with partners to build platforms, and we work with experts within other organizations to build those platforms and programs. We're not experts in everything, but we partner with those organizations to convene those programs. In 2022, we launched our decarbonization program. And as of this year, all our members are required to set SBTs for GHG reduction. Currently, we have over 50% of our members who've already set those targets, so that's quite an achievement already. To circle back on your question about scaling, it's through collaboration and having the robust data to inform and track and measure the impact. We collaborate with those experts, such as the Social and Labor Compliance Program, which was formed by the SAC, with the intent to drive convergence, reduce audit fatigue, and focus more on the impact of labor practices, and certainly speaking to some of the messages that we heard this morning. We've partnered with the Industry We Want, alongside the Fair Wear, the Ethical Trade Initiative, to create a path to action in support of social environmental transformation, GHG reduction, and decent jobs that begin with metrics to measure progress and galvanize action.
Thank you. Really inspiring initiative by the SAC. So I would like to ask a question to now Karin Reimerink. I don't know whether I pronounce it right or not. She is the Senior Director, Corporate Responsibility, PBH Europe. So we know that PBH also has recently declared its forward fashion commitments. So we would like to know from you more about the PBH forward fashion commitments and how important are they in making the decision of strategic partnership with the manufacturers, so if you can share.
Yes, happy to share, and thank you for the invitation to be here. Apologies up front, because I might be a little bit repetitive of what everybody has been saying on this panel, which personally I think is a good thing, which shows alignment and that we want to collaborate and strive for using the same tools, especially in the end to avoid confusing messages to our suppliers. I think within our forward fashion strategy, I can share a couple of targets that we have, a couple of programs that we do, just to give you a flavor of the broad variety of issues actually that we're trying and need to tackle in the fashion industry. The one that is longest out there is our Source Ethically program, which really focuses on getting insight on the human rights, but also the environmental conditions in the supply chain at our factories, and also work together with the vendors to remediate. How do we do that? I think that's the first link with what Lisa was just sharing, using the HIG suite tools. SLCP and HIG FEM are the ones that we use, and they provide I would say, great lesson for those facilities who didn't measure yet, because by working with the tools, you learn and you grow and you see where you can do better. But it also really gives good data and a baseline to see where are we now and what is the gap that we still want to close in order to reach our targets. And one example that comes to mind, jumping to the environmental part, is the target that we have on bringing down the greenhouse gas emissions. And for us, the HICFEM is a really valuable tool to get that data and then select as well and work together with our vendors to see where can we be most impactful, what kind of programs and collaboration should we be doing. Also there we collaborate. We work with a program called the Carbon Leadership program to really give also the technical knowledge to our facilities, because sometimes these topics can be very technical that we honestly as a fashion company also don't have in-house, but there are really good parties out there that do have the knowledge and that can really work with our facilities to do a baseline, find out what is already done, where are the opportunities to improve, and translate that into an action plan. Then maybe another topic for collaboration. Oh, no, sorry, if I can go back on how important it is to measure the performance of the facilities and making use of these tools. I would actually like to address also the link with legislation, because I think it was mentioned before, there's so many requirements. Every country has their own wish list, especially when it comes to due diligence. We see it in multiple countries popping up. If we can get an EU harmonization approach, that would be such a big help for our industry, so we can really focus on one thing, do that really well, instead of really accommodating to each different country and their different requirements. Rather, let us use the energy to actually work with our vendors and drive improvement there than to manage different data and accommodate different requests. So that will be really helpful. Then just a flavor of other things that we do. We really think it's super important to listen to workers' voices. So next to the comment that Andrei made, which I hugely support, we also have a collaboration with Better Work, who has a really running program to really advance social dialogue in the factories, which we've trained our team members to also then deliver those trainings in those countries where Better Work is not active. And then I think another collaboration that Andrei mentioned about RISE and women empowerment, that's also what PVH is supporting. So I think it's really nice that there are these organizations or these initiatives where multiple brands can drive a topic forward. And then how do we work with our vendors? We call it vendor engagement, but that is for those vendors where we've got these long relationships with, which personally I think is crucial in order to drive change. We have on a regular basis conversations with them to really transparently show what the current status is, how they're progressing on our targets, and then have a dialogue and see, okay, which one do we want to emphasize now? How can we help? How can we support? What are you already doing in that area? So that actually together we can shape a plan to drive progress. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think Mr. Syed Tanvir would like to add something in this regard.
Yeah, I think just to add on the EU regulation of what is coming after 2 years and how prepared we are. Just to add one point is that in Bangladesh, especially in a lot of the big factories and also including us, we've also started working on fiber recycling, because as you mentioned, that it's very important that we are prepared as a production base, that we are prepared in terms of sustainability sustainability to reach that goal of carbon emission reduction by 30%, not just one factory, but as a whole, as a country, as a sourcing base. And our regulation is also moving towards that direction. As a company, we are also investing in fiber recycling, like other big companies. And so this is moving towards a very right direction for Bangladesh. And definitely I can be very confident for myself and also for the country that Bangladesh will be the best sourcing destination for all the brands. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we would like to also conclude our session with this inspiring note. Thank you all the panelists for your enlightening discussions, and I wish I could take questions from the audience but we have a time constraint, so only we have run out of time. So we would only last request to all of you to stand and for a good photograph. And thank you again for coming and your valuable inputs. Thank you.